So we want to say thank you for coming in. I know you guys are young professionals, and undergraduate students looking to see what we pursue a career in. It's very important that we get insights from you guys. So I want to say thank you to Andrew, Mickey, John, and Sam. And I guess I just want to start you off by asking, can you start by introducing yourself and sharing a bit about what you do in your current role?
Yep, I have the mic, so I can start out. My name is Sam. I work for Suffolk Construction. I'm an assistant project manager, and I started there about 3.5 years ago. So at Suffolk, we're a big general contractor, which means that we build buildings. So, we're not really, our clients are basically the developers. So what we do is we manage the development. So in my current role, what I do is I oversee a certain amount of trades. Right now, I'm on the South Station Tower. If you guys have ever been downtown recently, you can see a big tower going up over South Station. And I think some of you in the room actually came down there and took a tour with us, so that was awesome. But in my current role right now, what I do is I essentially work with some trade partners, and that's people like plumbers and electricians and tile guys, to basically install and build what the developers and the architects, their vision is. So currently right now, we're building a high-rise that has 166 luxury condos in it. So I'm on the residential team. I'm working with a team of 3 other people, and we are basically fitting out these luxury condos. So that has everything to do with keeping the costs within the budget that the developers have, and making sure that the material is there on time when we are ready to install it. So it's kind of, you're the middleman between the vision that the architects and the developers have and the actual trade partners that are going to go out there and build it. So, yeah, I'll pass it off.
Hey everyone, I'm John Foley, class of 2022. I currently work at Berkadia Commercial Mortgage in New York. I work on our FHA HUD financing team, which is one of our specialty lending teams at Berkadia. Berkadia as a whole, we specialize mostly in multifamily real estate, with the HUD platform being almost exclusively multifamily, with seniors as well, seniors housing also being involved. I work on the multi-team, as I mentioned. Our day-to-day function is to originate deals from existing clients or new prospects, whichever the case may be, taking in the deal, underwriting it, spitting out of our model a mortgage amount, bringing that to the client, really dialing in our package as we move towards submitting the loan request to HUD, and then from then on, working with the client, working with our underwriting teams, working with our servicing teams to get the deal over the line, through the finish line, and then to the point where we are then servicing the deal moving forward. HUD's a unique platform. Like I mentioned, it's one of our quote-unquote specialty platforms in that it has a very different deal timeline and deal process from your conventional deals, whether that's with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, banks, debt funds. We at HUD, we go through a little bit longer of a process. It's a little more arduous. But that is because we're working with the federal government. And just a brief little 10,000-foot look into HUD lending. Instead of us loaning our own capital, or the federal government instead of the federal government loaning their own capital, the way it works is we at Berkadia, we actually loan out the money to the client, and the federal government insures it. So as you can imagine, with the federal government insuring our mortgage amount, that requires a lot of attention to detail, a lot of deep due diligence, and kind of just a higher level of nuance and detail that is required with HUD that kind of creates the longer deal process. So that's what I do, and I guess I'll pass off the mic now.
Hey everyone, I'm Drew Bailey. I'm a fund management associate at R4 Capital. R4 is a low-income housing tax credit syndicator. So our business is that we identify and invest in affordable housing opportunities, whether that is new construction or an acquisition rehab. On the fund management team, what our team does is we help give guidance to our acquisitions teams of certain areas in the country that our investors are interested in. We help give them guidance on pricing, on what investors are comfortable in paying for price per credit. And our job is to take our signed inventory of deals that we're either in the process of closing on or we have closed on, package them up together into funds, and then take those funds to market and try and raise investor capital. So that's going to banks and insurance companies or financial institutions and trying to get them to invest into our funds. And so we do the upfront structuring of the funds. We do the marketing of the funds. We do a lot of the due diligence work with investors. Some investors can be writing checks of $35 million, so they want to make sure that their money's going to the right place. So they ask a lot of due diligence questions. And then once the funds are closed, we are in charge of the ongoing reporting. So quarterly reports, K1 audit, K1 tax return reporting, audited financials, all that stuff. So we're a little bit unique, and some other shops will do, one team does the upfront stuff, one team does the ongoing reporting stuff. We're a one-stop shop, and we kind of see a little bit of everything. So that's kind of what our team does and a little bit of what R4 does.
How's it going, everyone? My name's Mickey Chappell. I'm on the capital markets team at Newmark, which is a brokerage firm here in Boston. I'm specifically on the multi team. Quite a few multi guys up here. But I'm on the investment sales team, so I help facilitate the sale of either land or fully developed multifamily properties. We'll do anything from 16 units up the road in Brookline, all the way to if South Station was apartments, South Station Tower. So it's a huge variety of product, and you get to meet a lot of different people from around the city. Another aspect of our job, worked with Amy a bit this summer. She was interning at Joseph J. Corcoran Development. They're building, a 92-unit property in Milton. Milton's obviously a super high barrier to entry market. They spent years permitting it, and they basically hired us to raise the equity on it. So I'm sure most of you guys know this, but as you build something, you're lending out 60% or borrowing 60% of the construction costs around there, and then you're in charge of that other, 40% of equity. So we worked with Amy and her colleagues in trying to get that equity set up. We're also basically just information brokers, right? So all this competition around the city, a lot of owners, a lot of developers, they all keep their information quite tight-knit. We're in a unique position where we're able to talk to all of them, right? So it's a bit funny. I'm 29, and you'll have people who are, 50, 60, been in the year for 30, 40 years, and they'll be asking you information on the market, and we just have a very unique position where we're able to hear kind of the honest truth from all the different parties, and that's kind of what makes us valuable to our clients. But at the end of the day, we're a client-based industry, the brokerage world. So it's a lot of maintaining those relationships, which we'll get into later. But it's also very fun, so I like that part.
Thanks for sharing. Mickey, as you just said, it's a very relationship-based business that you guys are in. I'm curious, a lot of you have been in our position, 3 of 4 at Boston College. How have you leveraged your network over the years to get to the position you're at today? And can you share a time in your past where networking has impacted your career?
Yeah, well, elephant in the room, I'm not the Boston College grad. And if I was, I wouldn't be a broker. But no, it's a great position to be in. Somewhat happy Sophie isn't here today because GID just came in a bridesmaid in one of our biggest sales about a week ago. And they probably spent hundreds of hours analyzing this deal to try to get it on their books. And at the end of the day, it's, we can advise the buyer as best we can on how to advise the seller as best we can on how to choose the buyer, but it's their decision at the end of the day, right? So that is really tough because GID is one of the biggest multifamily, and GID is who Sophie works for. They're one of the biggest, not multifamily, just real estate operators around the country, right? So they're a huge relationship for Newmark to have and to carry and to keep happy. When they go to sell a building, we want to be the first phone call, right? One way to do that is, to try to advise, if it is truly the right decision, advise the seller to, go that way to try to help out, GID in this case. Unfortunately, the best offer is the best offer, right? They're usually going to take the most money. A big theme this past year with all the market turmoil is surety of close. So how sure is it that the price that you say you're going to pay is going to be the price that you pay at the end of the day? So GID, for example, they've come in second in about 3 or 4 of our past processes, and they're probably upset at us, right? Like they've been right there, they've been in the top 3 every time, and we kind of just have to meet with them monthly, give them market updates, try to get their trust back. I mean, they trust us. They know we're not like advising them not to pick them, right? But it's more so just kind of being able to keep that relationship going the whole time. I mentioned that it was, fun earlier. Just like these 3 guys, like everyone works their way up into a position, right? And my boss didn't just get into his role by, getting promoted and then just having a Rolodex of all these contacts who were going to sell buildings. You kind of have to start at a young age of like, taking people out for drinks. All these brokerage firms have like sports tickets. So, you try to bring people your own age to sporting events. And also a huge part of it too, which I'll also touch on later, is going to industry events. And I'm sure you guys have heard that so many times and probably wondering what those are, or be like, what goes on where they're so important. It's more so just being like a familiar face, right? Like if I show up every time, I'm not going to meet everyone, but hopefully, be recognized by like name or by company. And you be able to nurture those relationships with other young professionals, so to speak. And that takes time. Like I'm not going to turn around tomorrow and get a huge listing because I met this person, a week ago. It could be years and years of work in order just to get one listing. But ultimately, that's how it's done. Like there's probably 5 or 6 brokerage shops in the city that all do the same thing, right? So when we go and bid for a deal, we're losing to like 5 or 6 different teams, and we know exactly who they are. 3 of them are in my office building, so like we see them on the elevators. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of fun in that respect. It's kind of like playing sports. Like there's a winner and a loser, and if you don't win, if you come in second, you're as good as last, right? So being able to put yourself in a good position with owners for those chances down the line really pays off. And, that basically just comes to trying to be normal and helpful, I guess. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question.
Does. Thank you. Anyone else? Feel free to share.
Yeah, I would say trying to like put myself back into your shoes. I remember the building an initial network can seem kind of scary, and like where do you start and like who do you reach out to? And I remember some good advice I was given was to think of like the bigger real estate companies that you may be interested in working at, going onto LinkedIn, don't like reach out to like the managing directors of the office. Like they're probably gonna be too busy and like aren't gonna respond, but like reaching out to analysts or associates, people that are 3 to 5 years out of school, and just saying, hey, like, you got time for like a 20-minute chat? And just ask them about their day to day. And once the conversation's kind of wrapping up, ask them to connect you to somebody else in the office or somebody else that's of a similar age at a different company, and just kind of rinse and repeat. And after 10, 15 conversations, it sounds like a lot, but it's really, you'll blink and it'll be like 2 months later, you're like, I've talked to 25 people. But you'll start to like figure out a sense of like, oh, that job sounded interesting. Oh, like this job didn't really sound that interesting. And you can kind of navigate your way that way. And then by the time, if you see a job posting popped up at one of these shops and you apply, chances are one of the people that you've spoken to are going to be the ones reading your resume. And that might be like another extra step to help you get in the door. So don't be afraid to just like reach out and just say like, hey, I just want to kind of pick your brain about what you do. Don't feel like you need to come in like resume in hand, or don't feel like you need to wait for a job posting or a job opportunity to be available. Like just start asking questions and start learning about what people do, and that will probably help you kind of figure out what you want to do as well. So.
Yeah, and I'll kind of just build off of what Drew was just saying, in that the best piece of advice I got when I was doing my initial networking in internship searches as well as full-time job searches was persistence is key. And that sounds really basic and really general, But the best way I can describe it is if I hear from a BC student and there's a job opening at Berkadia, and maybe once I see an email, we exchange pleasantries, set up a call, and then over the next 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, I see their name continually popping up. That level of effort and desire is the easiest trait that you can put across to an individual in the professional world, showing that you are a candidate that they should consider. It's something that I felt is what was one of the key points in getting me in the door at Berkadia. And again, like I said, it's as easy as any other thing that you can do. And as Drew was saying, once you start building out that network and you continue with that persistence, yeah, you're going to blink a month, 2 months later, you've got this Rolodex of 40 professionals that you've spoken with. But on top of that, your name can be in their minds as well. So say that they've got a friend in the industry that's looking for an analyst right out of college. Then they might offer your name as a candidate or as someone that they should reach out to. And so that's why I say persistence is key, because you never know what's on the other side of that first conversation or that second conversation, just as much as you're building your own network, and that is the fundamental biggest skill that you can grow for yourselves while you're still at BC, and preparing yourself for the professional world. On the back end of all those conversations, there's going to be movement and conversations and potential clicking of connections that someone else has with one of their friends or a client, and your name might come up in that conversation. So stay diligent with it. It is, I remember firsthand, it does get a little bit disheartening when you don't get that email back. And guess what? It's the same way in the professional world when you're prospecting deals. You're not going to get an email back every time. You're not going to get a call back every time. But the persistence is the easiest thing to do. And if you can commit to that and kind of lean on it as your pillar of your efforts as you start networking and seeking out professional opportunities, then I think you're building yourself a really good foundation as you really start to have more meaningful conversations and get your applications in and start moving through interview rounds. It's all going to help, because it's a hard skill at the end of the day, is having those conversations with people you connect with, and it makes you an even better interviewer. So if you stay with it and stay persistent, the benefits that are going to manifest down the line, whether it be connections or the hard skills of interviewing, it's all going to pay off. So that's kind of, again, simple. Persistence is key. That's my best piece of advice to you guys.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'll just build real quick off of what everybody said. When I was in your guys' shoes, I would have been terrified to reach out to anybody in the industry that I wanted to go into. So I totally understand it, and I was terrified to do this. And actually, when I was a senior and looking to go into the professional world, I didn't want to do that. And actually, one of my friends, their brother worked at Suffolk, and I reached out to him, and it was the nicest conversation ever. I think what you guys just need to realize is that Bill O'Brien says it, that BC is a very special place. And I think all the alumni are more than happy to help anyone from BC. I know that I've had a couple people reach out to me after we did a tour with the Corcoran Center, and we got coffee. And I thought, I was more than willing to help out and tell them all about my job, and explain to them, what I do day to day, the stuff that I love about my job, and even the stuff that I don't like. Because at the end of the day, it's not just about trying to find, a job. It's also two ways. And you guys should be interviewing them to see if it's somewhere that you could see yourself work. You should ask them what the culture's like, what are their hours like, and stuff that, if you could see yourself working there, not just right out of college, but making a career out of it. So, but I would definitely urge you to, not feel discouraged to reach out to any BC alumni. They'll be more than willing to help out. So,
Cool. I agree, John. I think persistence is key in networking. So kind of going off that and kind of building your personal brand, how important do you think building a personal brand is in the relationship-oriented business? And what steps have you taken to cultivate your own professional reputation?
yeah, your personal brand is everything. And kind of like we've talked about in all of the industries that we're in, networking is very important between not just your company, but the other companies as well. So your personal brand is everything. For us at Suffolk, you work on one project at a time with a large team. So my team over at South Station is probably like 40 people. Before that, I was on another project with another 20 people. You see the same people very often. If you have a good reputation of how you work, you're a hard worker, get stuff done, you're a problem solver, That'll go into your reputation as you go on from team to team, from project to project. So I would say, not only within the broader industry, but also within your own select company, building your brand is super important. So I'll pass it off.
Yeah, that's really well said, and I would kind of piggyback off that and just saying that it's obviously daunting and intimidating when you go and start working your first entry level or your first professional position, and you're the entry level new hire that is getting to know everyone in the room, and everyone wants to get to know you, and that definitely feels intimidating because it's effectively it's another interview. It's not an interview that's determining whether or not you get to work there, but it's an interview for them to understand how you're going to fit into the team. And it might sound basic and cliche, but if you go into your first job in real estate or whatever industry it is, your number one priority should be to be yourself, and on top of that, be your best self, because effectively that is how you're going to create the basics of your brand. At my high school graduation, a speaker read a quote that I don't know if he came up with it or he read it somewhere else, but he said, as we go off into undergrad, our 4 years of undergrad and beyond, our best gift that we could give ourselves is to be our own chief marketing officer. And the way I see that, it's kind of rhetorical, but what would you want if you were to found a company today? Would you want to be, like a deceptive, two-faced kind of brand, or would you want a brand that's true to your values? And it's no different with when you get in the door at whatever your first job is you want to be true to yourself, because that's the way that you're going to be able to build the best relationships, obviously. You're not going to have to put on a fake personality or anything like that, but more so than anything, that's going to help the people you work with understand how you add value best, how you can contribute to the success of your team, of your company, of the project you're on, to the highest level possible. So if you go in, try and put aside that intimidation, that consternation of what the immediate future as well as long-term future might hold for you, and just remember to be yourself and present yourself in the best way possible. And from there, it really will take care of itself. You guys are all getting a darn good education here. The Corcoran Center offers some incredible resources to build upon the classroom as well as outside the classroom. And once you get your foot in the door at that first job, if you're presenting your best self and your true self, I've got total faith that from there on out, everyone you work with is going to see that you're a meaningful contributor and someone that can, as time goes on, really take on responsibilities and become a meaningful contributor to the team that you join.
Yeah, for sure. And I think Mickey will probably be able to speak a lot more about your personal brand and like leveraging it in your actual work as a broker. But I don't have a whole lot of experience doing things like that. But I found that kind of like what you were saying with the being yourself is really important, because kind of establishing who you are in your own company can set you up for success down the line that you may not realize. I actually started off in underwriting in my company. I was there for 2 years. And after 2 years, you're allowed to kind of transfer internally. And our fund management team reached out and they said, hey, like, we think you could be good at this. We think that you would be someone that would enjoy like working with investors and things like that. And that was just because I had always kind of been myself at work. I had been myself at company events. I've been kind of outgoing and friendly, and then that led me the opportunity to be on the team that I'm on now. And now when I'm having dinner with an investor, I'm not trying to be somebody else. I just try and talk to them, learn something about them, find something that we have in common, and then just connect with them about that. It doesn't need to be like I need to be whoever they need me to be. It's just we're all like, everyone here is going to be a great individual in the workforce, and you can just find certain aspects about yourself that you can leverage going forward. But it's important that you stick to who you are and develop your personal brand in a very real, grounded sense, so that you're not finding yourself stuck in a situation where you're just totally like out in the deep end, kind of stranded. So I don't know. I think, sticking to who you are and your authentic self is important in developing your brand going forward.
Yeah, so I think John had mentioned like you're kind of interviewing the company as well, right? And specifically where I'm at Newmark, we like to think that like between all of our food groups, between office leasing, retail sales, like debt, office sales, everyone works together. And we're kind of unique in the fact that we have one team of each unit, right? So like some brokerage shops might have two or three debt teams, right? So it's kind of tough for them to share information amongst each other because, at the end of the day, like you only get paid for what you close. So you could go on 10 meetings a year advising a group, but you're not going to get paid a dime until either you sell them a deal or you sell their deal or you raise them equity for their deal, right? And so that can kind of get frustrating, right? Like, especially imagine, before March of 22, you'd been advising someone for 18 months, they're about to go to market, and then interest rates shoot through the roof. Like, it is your responsibility. I mean, they would know this regardless, but it's your responsibility to be like, we shouldn't go out and sell it right now. And you're probably delaying a fee, what is now almost 2 years, right, for market conditions to come back. But you need to be trustworthy. And that's kind of, I mean, brokers don't have the best reputation, but like you try to break that barrier and like become an advisor. There's been deals I've been working on ever since I started there that we probably won't sell for another year or so, but the people trust us because they'll ask us when's a good time to come out, and we'll just have to be like, you know what, this isn't the time. Like, you should wait. Fed said interest rates are coming down. Maybe we do it in the winter. Maybe we do it in the spring. I think there's also can be a connotation of like individual brands within the brokerage world, and yeah, those are probably like the people you see on Instagram and TikTok, which is fair. So I understand why that might be the thought, right? But it's more of a team than you think. We have about 6 people on our team that are working on every single deal, and when we close something, it's not I did it, I did it, I did it. It's a real team atmosphere. And kind of going back to that like winning and losing thing, like you win as a team and you lose as a team. And so that kind of shies away from the personal brand aspect. But I think as a company, it's really important to be on board with the company's brand itself. Like Suffolk, for example, the best in class contractor in maybe the country, right? Like John Fish, who runs it over there. So he's like polarizing, right? And he's being able to gain all this trust of, the biggest names of not only the city, but, the whole East Coast. And he's even down at, the national, real estate conferences. So he is a brand that's very trustworthy, right? And people will follow him into battle, so to speak, right? That's obviously 40 years of work that has made him where he is. But I think at the end of the day, it's really about like trust. And your reputation really will follow you wherever you go.
Thanks for sharing. Obviously, people in this room looking to get exposure to the industry continuously, I feel, are starting to realize there's so many niche-specific positions within the industry. You guys are situated at different firms in different niche-specific roles. Can you expand upon how you got to where you are in that specific role? How did you know it was right for you? What was that feeling like?
Yeah, so I actually, my first job out of college was in Dublin, Ireland. I worked for an office developer out there, suburban office developer, and operator. And that was in, this is going to date me, but September of 2019. So about, 4 or 5 months later, COVID hit. And my first job out of college was leasing office space. So that went about as well as you could imagine. And I was back in the US about a year later. I didn't work for 6 months, and then, interest rates were still very low at that point. And there was this company, Arbor Realty Trust, which for better or for worse has been in the news a lot lately. But one of my buddies worked there. He loved it. They're an agency lender. So, similar to what John's doing over at Berkadia, we were doing over at Arbor. Fannie, Freddie loans, dealing with multifamily deals across the country. Could see a deal in Montgomery, Alabama to Detroit in the same week, right? That really fine-tuned kind of like my technical skills, I guess. and just being able to be comfortable with Excel in like a professional setting. And at that point, I kind of knew I wanted to stick in with multifamily. And this kind of goes back to relationships. Like I got that job through a buddy, just having that connection. And then another one of my buddies was on the debt and structured finance team at Newmark, which differently from Arbor was more regional. They do national projects, but mostly, New England based, and they're dealing with local banks, life insurance, debt funds, more parties than we're dealing with at Arbor, which was just kind of the agency folks. So I knew they had a position open, and I knew he had really enjoyed his job, got to meet all these people. He's in the know of what's going on in the city, and I really thought that was something that would interest me. So I kind of used all of my resources to just like get in the door. And I don't know if he's here tonight, but Nick Vallis was our intern this past summer, and he was able to leverage his connections to get in the door as well. And whether it's right or wrong, that's like how you are able to be where you want to be, meeting those people, expressing your interests, giving yourself the skills early on. Whether I wasn't dying to work at Arbor, but it definitely set me up to succeed where I am now. So even if it means kind of taking the job you don't want before the one you do, I think if you can go in 18 months somewhere, get a promotion, like your options are gonna expand so much just by having that on your resume. In terms of when I knew I liked it. I'm a little bit of a competitive individual, so I really fell in love with that aspect of it. Obviously, one day I'd love to be on the principal side, but I kind of really like the hustle and bustle and moving around and, flying from client to client, trying to give them what they need. That part, I find pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like LIHTC was the aspect of real estate that I've been dreaming about since I was a little kid. It's super niche. It's not something that really people know a whole lot about, but I give a lot of credit to the Corcoran Center for kind of introducing me to the LIHTC space. I was a political science major at BC in arts and sciences. I had flirted with the idea of law school. There was a whole different groups of things that even by my senior fall, I had no idea kind of what I wanted to do career-wise. But I had done the Corcoran Center case competition, which was kind of my first introduction to the LIHTC space. And I found that the blend between real estate and real estate finance, and then also the affordable housing kind of community action stuff, was something that I was really interested in and wanted to kind of go into further. And when I had done the Corcoran internship program, just kind of that helped kind of cement my interest in the LIHTC space. And then I was fortunate enough that during the summer after graduation, I saw a job posting at R4 in their underwriting group. And in my networking calls that I talked about earlier, it had become clear to me that underwriting was a great place to start to learn real estate as a core itself. You don't need to know a lot of finance. You don't need to know discounted cash flows and all of this crazy modeling stuff. It's really talking about how much can you get in rent, how much are you gonna have to spend in expenses, what does this project make sense from an ongoing perspective. We'll let the acquisitions team worry about the upfront pricing and deal structuring and all that stuff. So I've found that LIHTC has been a really cool opportunity and a really cool space in real estate that has begun getting lots more of attention, I would say, in recent years. I think you'll start to hear more and more people learning about institutional investing in LIHTC, and really I think there's a lot of future in the space. But I think it's a really cool industry that I've found just through BC. And I'm not going to say like, oh, you need to do the Corcoran internship program in order to get into LIHTC, because obviously a competitive program, and I don't want to feel like if you don't get the internship, you're not going to be able to get a LIHTC. I highly, highly recommend doing the case competition. It's a great experience. You'll learn a lot about kind of yourself through going through it can be kind of a grind, and I think it was a really fun, engaging experience, and that opened my eyes to a part of real estate that I had never learned about before. So I think that was kind of my first foray into LIHTC, and when I had started to get a sense of what I wanted to do going forward.
So I guess I can just start off by saying I had a little bit of a different first foray into the real estate world. I got hired at Berkadia my senior year, in January of 2020, and obviously in March my job kind of got thrown into question. But I was fortunate enough that Berkadia kept me as someone they were going to onboard the following January. And when I started Berkadia, I was part of our first rotational analyst program, which is a spin-off, or not a spin-off, but kind of a molded copy of what CBRE has done for years in their wheel program, as they call it. And the idea behind the whole program is to run recent hires, recent graduates from college through our three main production lines, being mortgage banking, underwriting, and investment sales. So I kind of had some experience working in the same spaces as both Drew and Mickey in my first 18 months. But for my mortgage banking rotation, I ended up with the HUD group. And I don't assume that any of you guys would know this, but HUD is not transferable to any other subsector of real estate or even in multifamily. It's a whole different language, a whole different deal process. And so it was a little bit of a start-stop experience for me in that I had a great 6 months with the mortgage banking team. Their deal velocity was as high as it had been in 4 or 5 years. I was getting to underwrite deals, which is, that's a dream for any recent hire, is to be able to get your hands on a deal early on and really get in the weeds with it. And then I moved into the underwriting rotation, got to see what that was all about. Like Drew said, really understanding the nitty-gritty and getting into the numbers and understanding the fundamentals of what makes a deal work. And then fortunately for me, I also got to see a 6-month stretch with an investment sales team and understanding the relationship, like Mickey was saying, the true nature of those relationships that you build and the market timing and trying to optimize value for a client. And so that brought me back at the end of the rotational analyst program to the HUD mortgage banking team, which was unique in that I came back to that group when the market had gone completely cold. So that I kind of felt like that 4, 5, 6 months after I came back to the mortgage banking team, after I completed the rotational analyst program, was like another rotation for me because I was doing job functions that I had never had to do in any of the three rotations initially, and that was a lot of prospecting, a lot of back-end, process-based work to improve our efficiency as a team, marketing projects, stuff that you typically wouldn't do when the market's hot. But it allowed me to get to a point where once deals started picking up in early 24 and as we've started to move towards this decreasing rate environment and hopeful prospects of deal volume picking back up to historical levels, I feel way more equipped now because of how I got to this point. And that was, coming in a unique first-time program that was, everyone was trying to find their feet, the program administrators and the senior leadership putting it together, as well as us as rotational analysts, me and the other 4 at Berkadia. It's allowed me to get to a point where I feel like I have a good knowledge of the industry, of what Berkadia does as a whole, and also, some of the stuff that's hidden behind the curtains. And so I mentioned all that as a way of, imparting the axiom of the real estate world that basically everyone hears early on in their career, and that one of the best things you can do is to learn a little about a lot as opposed to a lot about a little. And so basically what that is just, open your horizons, broaden your horizons. It goes back to the relationships, have those conversations that aren't necessarily essential to your job function, but it will allow you to get to a place at some point in your early career where you feel very confident in the conversations you have, in discussing what your team does. And that's something that I feel very proud that I was able to do through my experience, and has allowed me, I feel like, to be a much more meaningful contributor within my team and in events like this.
Yeah, so I think Suffolk is a little bit different, just the industry as a whole. It's construction. And construction typically pulls kids that are, civil engineering majors, construction management majors. So as an econ major, I wasn't exactly the typical format for what they're looking for. But Suffolk is unique that they go out and they hire kids from a liberal arts background. I initially was always interested in construction. My summers between freshman, sophomore year, I would spend working for a construction company, actually on top of roofs installing solar panels back in California, where I'm from. So I was always interested in it. My junior year, I ended up doing an internship for a consulting company here in Boston. It was kind of a weird summer because it was during COVID. It was all online. Ended up not working out. And so I was kind of looking at some other firms, stuff to get into. When I was here at BC, I actually played basketball, which is kind of surprising given that I'm, not even close to 6 feet tall. But John Fish, as you mentioned, he's a big BC guy. So he had a big a big event for all the BC athletes down at our headquarters down in Roxbury. So I went there. They talked about Suffolk construction, and instantly I fell in love. I was really interested in it. I wanted to do an internship, but it didn't work out. And, I always kept it in the back of my mind. So I was always interested in it, kept it in the back of my mind. Come the fall of my senior year, I applied for the position, went and interviewed, and everybody had amazing things to say about it, and really, decided this is kind of the path I want to go to. Suffolk has a great training program. They call it the Career Start program. It's a 2-year program where you do, again, different rotations. You do one in project management. You do one in field operations, which is actually on site with your boots, your hard hat, working with the foreman every single day. And then one rotation in the estimating department where you're bidding out projects, putting together budgets for future projects that we're going to bid and work on. So that's about 2 years, and then you get to pick the path that you go to. I picked project management, really spoke to me. I really loved the aspect of, you get both aspects of the financial side where you're trying to keep the project within the budget, but also the side of the field where, it's not just a desk job. I am at South Station Tower every single day. I'm on the job. I'm wearing boots right now because I was actually on the job. My pants are kind of dirty because they were doing drywall, and they got dirty. So that's one aspect that I really love about the job. And then the other part is just seeing what we build. We build some pretty cool stuff. If you look, I know BU, sucks to BU, they're our rival and everything. The cool tower that kind of looks like stacked books, Suffolk built that. I wasn't on that project, but I think it's a really cool project. When you're driving down on Sturo Drive, it looks awesome. And it's really cool to be a part of a firm that did that. My previous project was the Raffles Hotel over in Back Bay, if anybody's been there. My parents came and visited me, and they have a really cool rooftop terrace kind of bar and restaurant area, and I took them there. And that was one of the proudest moments that I've had in my whole life, is just to sit there and just show them it and, be a part of, and show them that I was a part of, building this and had some say in it while I was, just starting out. I thought it was really cool to show them that. So those are some of the aspects that I really love about my job, and kind of how I got into it. So, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing your experiences and your different roles. The purpose of this career panel is for us to understand the different roles in real estate. I guess me included, for students who are still exploring their options, how would you recommend which area of real estate to pursue?
Yeah, I can start out. I think this kind of goes back to everything that we've said before. Networking is very important. Again, after this, I'm sure if you reach out to any of us, we will be more than happy to hop on a call, grab a coffee with anyone here. And we can talk more about any of the specific questions you have of our day-to-day, what, it looks like to work at any of our firms. So I would say that. And two, I would say just, keep an open mind. When I initially was, looking for the job search, maybe I had something else in mind. I would say just keep a broad mind of what you want to do. Don't get pigeonholed into only going into and wanting to be a broker, or wanting to, work at a general contractor, or, work for a developer. I would say keep a broad mind of everything. And I think what you guys are doing in the Corcoran Center, and, attending events like this really goes to speak exactly, what that is. So, again, feel free, honestly, reach out to all different people in different industries. And even, if you want to reach out to people outside of real estate. I think that would be awesome too, just to understand, the different kind of industries and roles that you can do as, someone graduating from BC with, I'm guessing you guys are in the business school or finance, or I was an econ major or something like that. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think first and foremost is the networking. You really, it's been mentioned by I think all four of us in some capacity or another. But every one of those conversations you have, it should while you're doing the networking because you want to hear about job opportunities, you're hopeful for a referral, those sorts of things, like all the stuff that isn't necessarily said explicitly in the conversation, but is kind of known to be part of the discussion on a subliminal level. You also want to get to know what they do, and if it piques your interest, and if you feel like it's something you could get passionate about. So that would be number one, networking, and also making sure you're doing that kind of reverse interviewing process or thought process while you're on those calls. To that, I think like taking really good notes when you're on those networking calls is pretty fundamental, because a lot of it, you're trying to be in the moment, you're trying to listen, but you're also trying to get those questions in. So make sure you're getting down all the ideas. I know that's not rocket science, and I'm sure every single one of you in the room does that already. But the last thing I would say is you can't really consume enough information or, that buzzword nowadays, content, about real estate as you try and figure out what path you want to go down if you want to find that your spot in the industry. Everyone I speak to, whether it's BC students, recent graduates still looking for a job, other students of other universities and colleges, I recommend you read. Just like I'll always give a list of publications and websites that you can read from, just to kind of it always helps to expand your vocabulary and basic knowledge of the industry. But while you're doing that, you're also going to kind of figure out what hits the buzzer in your mind in terms of what piques your interest. And so it's obviously it's perfectly fine to not feel like what subsector of real estate you want to go into if it is the career path you want and the industry you want. But as you go through the process, make sure you're reading up on it and trying to get a sense of what the issues are at play in our industry on a day-to-day basis. And from there, as you read more, as you continue to do your research, I'm sure the subsectors and the more niche lines within the business will kind of stick out amongst the others. And yeah, like I said, it's a dual benefit exercise in that you're expanding your knowledge and you're hopefully finding what is going to click for you in the long run.
It's tough to say any particular real estate space is like where you should look. I think kind of going back to the networking calls, I want to highlight that there's no bad call. If you have a call with somebody and it ends up sounding like a job that you really don't want to do and you have no interest in doing, you've just eliminated and saved yourself from wasting a bunch of time on researching and networking in a space of the real estate world that you may not be interested in. So I would say it's not just, don't feel like you should only be reaching out to teams that sound really interesting to you. Reach out to a wide array, because something may surprise you that you're like, oh wait, that's what you do? I had no idea that's what that team does. That sounds really cool. There's all sorts of different stuff. Everybody does something different. Every company does things a little bit different. If one team at one company sounded not that interesting, but a team of a similar name at a different company, they could be doing things in a much different way that all of a sudden piques your interest. So I would say try to avoid limiting yourself and researching things that from your current perspective is like, oh, this is what I want to do. You won't really know what you want to do until you're out there doing it. And I would say also, don't feel like you need to hit a home run with your first job. Don't feel like your first job out of school is going to be the end all be all. I'm going to build my career here. It could be a company that you really want to work for, get your foot in the door, and then after a year or two, you can transfer teams. Or it could be, this is a space that I really like. The company, you may want to avoid working for a company you don't really like, but if, you don't need to have the perfect, this is going to be my career day one. You'll get there odds are that your first job is probably not going to be your last job. So don't be afraid to research new things and try new jobs, and don't feel like you need to get it all done in one go.
Yeah, kind of just echo that. I mean, we all do very different things. Like HUD and LITech are hieroglyphics to me. I have no idea what any of that stuff really is in the nuts and bolts. And also the construction end, like you're not going to learn that by reading a book, right? Like you have to be there on site, looking at the budgets and actually, getting that experience. Even if you don't like any of those things, if you have that experience for 18 months, you're going to have a unique perspective going forward. So like they mentioned, your first job doesn't have to be perfect. I think, like I said earlier, you do 18 months. If you can move up, great. Move on to something that will, more directly lead you to what you want to do. I mean, that is like the only advice I give in that respect. Another just quick piece of advice is, we've mentioned networking probably 100 times, but go to these networking events, talk to different people who do different things. There's an organization called REFA Boston. It's the Real Estate Finance Association. You get all walks of life showing up to that thing from all aspects of real estate. And they're all happy hours, right? Students, I think it's like $75 for the year. But you can easily go there and knock off a few jobs you definitely don't want to do, and hopefully like find one that interests you, right? But yeah, the first job, good for you if it's the perfect one, but don't let it discourage you if it's not.
I like how you guys both commented on it's not an all.
Yeah.
You can transition, right? And everybody's trying to figure that out right now, and all you guys bring very diverse experiences, and I think that's why we're all very grateful for you guys being here today. But yeah, we just want to say thank you for taking the time to come. Anybody else who has questions, we'd love to open up the floor.
Hey guys, my name's Patrick. Appreciate you guys coming today. I guess this is more of a question for the multifamily guys. But do you find it just like particularly rewarding that you're contributing in like the production of multifamily housing, an asset that is in pretty high demand right now?
I'll let the HUD and LITech guys take that one. I can go afterwards, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I find it extremely rewarding, especially because 100% of the business we do is for the creation or preservation of affordable housing. So not only are we providing new or clean housing for people, it's for people who need it, and it's going to primarily underserved communities. So I find it extremely rewarding. That was a big interest of mine in getting into the LIHTC space, was that I felt like I was entering a field where I could make money and I could like build a career for myself, but then I'm also doing some good and kind of having a positive impact going forward. So yeah, I mean, I definitely find what I'm doing very rewarding.
Yeah, I mean, Drew said it best. It's great when you're working on a deal, knowing that X amount of units that you're building or refinancing and making sure is going to remain in operations moving forward is helping to solve a lot of the housing issues that exist in this country. I'll say personally, having taken classes in the Corcoran Center when I was a student here, as well as hearing about other students and applicants at other schools that are in their real estate centers, you all are very well positioned and uniquely positioned in the fact that the Corcoran Center is called the Corcoran Center for Real Estate and Urban Action. There's a fundamental, there's more of an importance placed on the urban action component of it here than at most other centers that I've interacted with in the recruiting and interviewing process of other schools. And I think that's something that you guys should keep in mind if multifamily is something that you want to get into, or other asset classes, how it fits into that kind of general ethos of the Corcoran Center. It certainly has made my work a hell of a lot more rewarding and meaningful. But it allows you to have a unique knowledge and understanding of a real problem that exists, on a real estate level, but also on a national level as well, that you can bring to your career. So I implore you guys to take advantage of that and make it part of your knowledge and your foundational knowledge of real estate, and and I'm sure it'll serve you well.
Yeah, and I'll just add, like, if that is something, you're interested in, then, like, these guys, live and breathe it every day. And, in this city specifically, like, there's a huge housing shortage, right? And there's a 20% requirement on new development, which is great and probably not enough. And I was talking to Professor Perkins about this a few months ago. There's just a lot of other components the city's making you do, whether it's putting in a blue bike thing or putting millions of dollars into like sidewalks or stuff that can get in the way. And people will point to the affordable housing part, like that, like, oh, if there was no affordable housing, like this would be fine. There's a million things going on. Construction costs are high. That's what's hurting it. There's a ton of things that are preventing the development, but I think a lot of people do want to see more affordable housing in this city. And it's just a matter of finding that equilibrium across hundreds of parties, right? That's making it so difficult.
Yeah, appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right, well, please join me in saying thank you very much.